Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl News. My name is Brian, and at this Turning Point Action Convention, Donald Trump sets up Ted Cruz for this amazing smackdown of a speech. Let's dive in.
Thank you very much, Paul, and everybody, and Brandon Judge, and all of the people. They do such an incredible job. We're also pleased to be joined by a man who just also, we really did well in Texas. And I heard Ted's speech. And he can come up and speak more if he wants, or he can just, Ted's going to be going to a big event in a little while. Where's Ted Cruz? Is he here? He's here someplace. Ted? Ted? Oh, he's in trouble. Oh, he's in trouble. No, he was here. Oh, good. He's not in trouble.
Keep Texas, Texas. Amen. And I've got to say, this election has given President Donald J. Trump, a Republican Senate and a Republican House, a clear mandate to deliver on our promises. One month from today, President Trump will secure the border. We are going to bring back jobs. We are going to lower prices. We are going to protect American families. We are going to put criminals in jail. We are going to keep our kids safe. We are going to end foreign wars with victory. And I'll tell you, Mr. President, the results of this election, 7 battleground states, you won all 7. The people elected a Republican Senate and a Republican House to have your back, and we are going to deliver results. And if I could speak parochially for a minute, one of the most consequential things that happened in this race in Texas, you won profoundly in Texas, and both you and I won a majority of Hispanic votes in the great state of Texas. That is unprecedented. That is generational change, and it demonstrates that we are going to protect our nation. We are going to bring our country back, and we are going to make America great again.
Attaboy, Ted. What a smackdown, just out of left field, out of nowhere. All Donald Trump has to do is just call out your name and poof, you come out of the woodwork like someone sprinkled some fairy dust and he just shows up on camera. And you can tell Ted Cruz was not expecting to go on just yet because he's rushing up there. He's trying to rebutton his suit up. He's not wearing his tie. Because he'll usually show up with a tie of some sort, and that usually means you don't button up your suit jacket. So Ted Cruz is trying his best to regain himself because he wasn't expecting to take the stage, but that's just what Donald Trump does. And so Ted Cruz, obviously not in trouble, and 8 years ago, these two dudes were at each other's throats during the election. Because I remember that primary period. I wasn't a Ted Cruz supporter at the time. I was a John Kasich supporter, and boy, did I get that one wrong. Thank the Lord. But Ted Cruz, I've always been a big fan of his, and I know some Texans aren't really in his court, and I can sort of understand that, but the reality is he's a constitutional scholar, he's a legal genius. You need those kinds of minds, particularly in the Senate. Not necessarily in the House, but definitely in the Senate. You need someone like that because they're sort of the safeguards, because it's their job to overlook the federal government, particularly the executive branch. It's their job to say yes to the Supreme Court justices and yes to the cabinet members. So you want a constitutional scholar with a legal background. And that's why I'm big fans of him, Ted Kennedy, and Josh Hawley. And of course, there are many others. Now, the junior senator from Missouri is also pretty pretty high on the list. Schmidt, I believe it is. But ultimately, yes, God bless Texas, okay? It's not just the promised land for no reason. Right now, it is one of the greatest states in the Union to live in, to do business in. And I'm saying that even as a Georgia boy, and we've been bragging for years that we're the #1 state to do business. I know a couple of friends will quickly pipe up and say it's North Carolina. All great states. But 2 of them are battlegrounds, 1 is not. And that's because of the work that has been done by the Trump campaign, by Ted Cruz, and other senators, like, for instance, Rick Scott, and I'll get to him in a moment. But there has been major gains in the Latino community because the Latino voters are starting to look left and they're starting to look right, and they're realizing that Democrats don't like Christianity. Most Latino voters, particularly recent immigrants, have very Catholic or even sometimes evangelical backgrounds. 2, they're seeing the illegal immigration spike and they're realizing, oh, these are the crazy neighbors that we had to run away from. They know who's coming in. That's why they're avoiding the Venezuelans like the plague. And sure, there are good Venezuelans coming in, but when the reports were coming out over a year ago that Venezuela had opened up its prisons and said, go to America, get out, that becomes a massive problem. And with the cartels allowing people to come in at such cheap rates, not to mention what they do with human trafficking, it makes this for a huge problem. And the current administration did jack squat to squash the problem. All they did was just beg Congress, please tell us what to do, instead of, hey, I need to move resources from A to B, I'm going to do it myself. That is what executive orders are for. That is what Mayorkas is supposed to do, and there's a reason we tried to impeach both Mayorkas and Biden. Almost succeeded with Mayorkas, and he kind of deserves to go. So Ted Cruz here is basically reminding us that Latino voters are coming to the GOP in droves, and I've explained 2 of the reasons, but I think the last one's the most important one. The Latino voters are starting to realize, wait a minute, we can own property in America. To normal people, to people like myself who grew up in a nice suburban household, didn't really understand the idea of owning property. That's something that had to be born into me. So looking into my family's history, I've got a whole bunch of family from North Georgia and Chattanooga, and they own land around the where Hamilton Mall is today. They own land around the Chickamauga battlefield. And they owned a couple of small places here and there, but that's how they were able to build wealth, even though they weren't paid that much. And then my family on my dad's side came from the hills in North Georgia. They owned their own land, and they even got a little bit mad that some of it got sold off without everyone's written consent because they knew if they held out, they could get a higher price. But again, Latinos are beginning to understand that that building block for building wealth is quite literally owning land, and they can do that here in America. They can own their own businesses here. They can own their own pieces of property. They can build their own homes bigger and better than they could in Latin America because of just different systems of government and the kind of freedom and the capitalist ideals that we have here today. So they understand that the Republicans can look them in the eye and say, we believe you have a shot at the American dream. We still believe that the streets are paved with gold, and we still believe in the great American melting pot. We believe in your ability. That message, and I want to end with Rick Scott, another senator. He took that message to Latino communities all throughout Florida, and he turned Florida deep red. That is now happening in Texas, and that is now the playbook that's going to be happening in Georgia. There is a huge Latino community, a huge Colombian, Puerto Rican community here in Georgia. North Carolina has a growing Latino population. Wherever these voters are going, they're starting to realize that the Republican ideals, the ones touted here by both Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, are the way forward. This is progress. This is economic opportunity. This is what America has to offer. And the Democrats have none of that. And I'm proud to say that I've been a Republican all my young life because finally this message is starting to hit home. We're starting to go back to our roots and say what works, say what wins. That's what Trump has tapped into. That's what Ted Cruz is getting on board with. And Rick Scott helped pave the way for this. This is one of my favorite things to cover. It's political coalitions, and we're seeing a beautiful one rise right in front of our eyes, and it's all about the American ingenuity and spirit. And that spirit isn't just because of people that were born here in America and came over on the Mayflower. That's a spirit that happens and resides in the hearts of every single person that wants to become an American citizen. It is not genetic, it is something that you learn and ingrain into yourself. And that's what makes America great. And that's why Trump is saying that he's going to help make America great again. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed this segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one, and until then, y'all have a good one.